Hello and welcome to introductory video on calculate DAX function. This function is one of the most important DAX function. It derives its importance because of the number of scenarios in which this function is used. It is the only function in DAX which can make context transition, that is from row context to filter context. Further, it is also the only function which can override the existing filter context. Learning this function is very easy. However, to master it will require patience and practice. In your journey of learning DAX function, you will be amazed with the power of this calculate function. So let us briefly understand how this function works and how calculated measures are evaluated when we are using this calculate function. I hope you still remember the 3 steps process performed in the background by DAX engine to get the results from a DAX formula. If not, then I would suggest you to revisit before you move ahead with this video. To understand this 3-step process, we had taken an analogy from a task to count the balls by each of the individuals on their own favorite colored balls. This 3-step process is always performed whenever a calculated measure is being evaluated. However, this process gets modified and one additional step is added to the process whenever we use calculate function. So to understand this, let us revisit the same task of counting the balls stored in a jar. To recap the task, here we have a different colored balls stored in this jar, and each of the individuals needs to count the balls whichever he likes. Each person will follow the 3-step process to perform the count. So first of all, each of the person will decide what kind of a colored ball he will be counting. Second, it will be like separating the balls into a small bar jar and finally counting them. Now imagine that each of these individuals has a boss to whom they report. Boss always has a higher authority, so he can decide what each of these individuals should be doing. Calculate functions is just like that boss, which decide what other DAX functions should be doing. So in our case now, here boss can either tolerate what each of the individuals has a choice, or he can simply override their individual choices. Boss can simply order all the individuals to count only the red colored balls like this, no matter whatever their favorite color is. However, boss may also allow each person to count the balls whichever he likes, but may ask them to consider more attributes of these balls. Now these additional attributes can be ball weight, ball size, and so on. So in simple words, boss can either completely override the choices already made or adds more condition to the existing choices made. Calculate functions also works in the similar way. It can either override the existing filter context or simply add few more filter contexts to the existing ones. So let us compare what exactly happens in the 3-step process and original process and now the 4-step process. Now the original process is as follows. The first step is to get the filter context from visuals, filters, slicers, and so on. And second step is to pull out the records from table inside DAX engine memory. And finally performing the mathematical operations. Now when you use the calculate function inside measure, this 3-step process is converted into a 4-step process. When you have a calculate functions, so there is a new second step which is also being performed. After getting the initial filter context values, it is checked whether the calculate function is saying, whether it is overriding the initial filter context or adding a new filter context. So calculate will always have an upper hand and a priority. So once this is done, rest of the process are same, like filtering out the relevant records and then performing the mathematical operations. Now calculate can have a simple filters or filters put up by all function or filter function. Now these two functions we will be seeing in later part of this video. So I hope this process is now very clear to you once you have a calculate functions in a measure. It will become more clear when we see this inside our Power BI desktop with a sample example. We will be watching that in a next video. So that is it from my side guys for this video.